Everything Everywhere All at Once is a fast-paced science fiction film featuring Michelle Yeoh jumping around the multiverse whilst trying to finish her taxes. We were excited to finally check this one out and see if it lived up to the expectations created by the buzz online. Welcome everyone to the Atomic Cinema Experiment. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Tara.
Greetings, citizens.
Now, Tara, I hope you're paying attention to me in this universe, and possibly other universes as well.
Do you have a message for me?
Yes.
Instructions?
I have instructions. Put the sunglasses on the banana, and I can't think of anything else funny, okay? That's the only random thing that came to my head. This is a science fiction movie podcast, and if the last 10 seconds were very confusing, they'll make more sense when we talk about the movie, I promise. It is relevant to what's in the film. We are talking in this episode about Everything Everywhere All at Once, which is a film that came from A24 earlier this year, starring Michelle Yeoh, and it's a film about the multiverse, a film about parallel universes and someone who kind of starts tapping into other universes. And of course, we'll start spoiler free as we always do. We'll give you a warning before we get into spoilers. The trailer kind of came out at the start of the year and sort of surprised everyone, just in the sense that, oh, this looks kind of wacky and different and unique, so people were kind of hyped about it, and it got some pretty reasonable buzz. But it had a very staggered release between regions, so we couldn't really do it until it hit the home video market. So here we are, finally here at the end of July, to talk about it. So that's what we're going to talk about. So like I say, basic premise, Michelle Yeoh plays this woman, this mother who runs a laundrette and is in a little bit of bother with the IRS. They're being audited, and Jamie Lee Curtis is in here in a role. She plays the IRS agent. Is agent the right word?
Auditor.
I'm sure she says agent at one point in this, but again, she might be trying to make herself sound more important than she actually is. But so they're having a bit of bother, but very early on, her husband starts changing into a different version of himself and giving her these messages and hints, and from there it just kind of unravels into this wild concept of multiverse, universe hopping, and lots of inventive fight scenes and all sorts of shenanigans. So I'll save the proper explanation for when we get to spoilers, because I think a lot of the plot is kind of, you should go in relatively cold, I think, and just let it kind of hit you the way it is. But that is the film, and her husband, we should mention, is played by Kwan, who is notable for a couple of roles, but notably the roles that he's notable for were both in the 80s when he was a child. The Goonies and the second Indiana Jones movie, Temple of Doom. So he's and it's not even when I heard he was going to be back in a movie, I thought, oh, it's cool that he's getting a cameo. This is not a cameo. He's the second lead character. He has tons of screen time. He has tons of stuff to do. He's playing multiple versions of the character. He is
Has he been acting? And we just didn't notice him, or did he come back for this movie?
So before this movie, his last, technically he had the credit in 2021, but before that, his previous work was 2002, and then before that 97, before that 92. So basically he finished regular acting in 1992. That's where his regular acting role stopped,
because he's great in this.
Oh yeah.
It's so weird.
Yep, he was acting from 1984 Temple of Doom up to 1992, and then he had one or two cameos or voice roles or something. But other than that, he was gone for 30 years, and
weird.
And came back. And I think what's impressive about it is, well, two things: one, that he's so amazing in this, but two, that I recognized him. It's so weird, but he has this way of talking where I'm like, oh, you're Data from Goonies. I can hear it
pretty quickly too. Like once he starts speaking in English, you're like, oh.
Oh yeah, when he's speaking in Mandarin. Yeah, when he's speaking in Mandarin, obviously I don't hear it then, but as soon as he started speaking in English, I'm like, oh wait, I know exactly who you
Jones?
And then the her father, Michelle Yeoh's father in this, is also a recognizable face from Big Trouble in Little China. And I looked this actor up.
I mean, he's been in so many things. He's done so much voiceover work also.
He's done a lot of voiceover work, but I mean the main thing people know from is Big Trouble in Little China. But I looked him up. That dude is 90 years old.
Yeah.
He is old. He's an old man. So credit to him for still being so vibrant in his role in this.
Is he in the episode of Seinfeld where they go to the Chinese restaurant?
Oh, I don't remember. It may be, but I don't remember.
Seinfeld 4?
So, then the other main character is their daughter, Joy, who is not a teenager, but is like close to teenage.
Young adult?
Yeah, young adult. Yeah, close to around that age. So that is your main set of characters. Yes, Tara, what did you think of Everything Everywhere All at Once?
I love this film. I thought it was super fun to watch. I mean, the trailers were fun, so you kind of got that. It was just such a cool spotlight of not just Michelle Yeoh and like all of her acting capabilities, but also Short Round. Sorry, I don't remember his name, but yeah, I thought the emotion really worked for me. The setup, although it was kind of hard at first to get into, really got me by the end. Like even the like more ridiculous stuff I was looking at, I was still like was feeling the emotion of it, and I really liked the messages of the film.
Yeah, I quite like the film as well. I do think that the first half is stronger than the second half. And I think that's maybe because it's a little bit too long. In the second half, I think not meanders, but like I do feel like it can make the exact same points that it makes with just a little bit of trimming the fat. But like there is a lot of emotion in the second half, and I do like the ultimate messages that it gets to by the end of the second half. But I think the first half is like this really inventive, like almost just action movie setup where there's really impressive fight scenes, the mechanic of like setting up the rules of how it all works, and then it playing out. You know, like Quan playing the husband, his name's Waymond in the movie. He has this like fight scene with a fanny pack, which is just exceptionally well shot, exceptionally well choreographed. It's really fun. But so I think the performances are very good. Like the main two, I mean, all four of the main cast are really good actually. But like the main couple, like they are both exceptional. And obviously you came into it expecting this to be a showpiece for Michelle Yeoh because she's the star, she's the one that's in all over the trailer. But like he damn near steals the show, and not because she's slacking, just because he is so impressive in this movie, and he's really important to the message of the film as well. The other thing I would say is that this movie has such a strong directorial touch. Like right from the start of this film, the opening like 10 minutes, it set me up for like it put me in a really good mood because it was such a strong set piece, not of action, but just simply of we're going to set up just how hectic their lives are, and like the transition between their apartment and the laundrette, and like dealing with customers to dealing with family troubles between the daughter and the grandfather, and back and forth, and sort of intermixing talking to customers, and like I was almost getting anxious the way it was like jumping around all these things, but it did so effortlessly and it never felt confusing. It was just like you got this like this is the gauntlet that this woman is going through on a daily basis, and this is what her life is like, and obviously that's important for the themes of the film as it goes on, but it was just such a strong directorial piece that by the time it does the almost joke thing where the first part of the title comes up with the big loud boom, it's almost it's almost like a punchline to all of the chaos up until that point, because it just comes up saying everything, and it's with the big loud noise, and it's like, oh, that's obviously like a title moment, and it's you know, it's fitting as a setup for the movie, but it also just felt like, yeah, that's what it feels like. I feel like I've just seen everything. Like everything's just been happening constantly.
Yeah.
So
And Michelle Yeoh is having to carry all of it on her shoulders herself. At least that's the setup.
yeah. Well, but well, I'll get some debating on that, but we'll save that for spoilers.
Well, that's the setup of the character that you're watching. Yeah.
Yeah. I would, even in the opening scene though, I do think it kind of sets up that it's maybe a little self-inflicted is not the right phrase.
No, yeah,
but,
it's definitely a choice that she's carrying everything.
Yeah. You know, part of her arc in the movie is she has to, you know.
Hey, spoilers.
Just, you know, that's kind of part of what she has to, you know, learn and accept and grow from, or so, you know, so on.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes. So, but it is very good. Like you know, my minor pacing qualms about the second half that I do feel goes on a little bit too long isn't really that much of a big deal in the grand scheme of things. But it is, you know, it's 2 hours and 20 minutes movie, so I think if they could shave off like 10-15 minutes of that second half, you know, no, I'm saying go make a director's cut just for me. Well, it'd be my cut, but
you know, I did feel like because I watched it a second time today. I watched it earlier this week and then watched it again today, and the first time I watched it, I did feel like these scenes are going on a bit long and I'm not really feeling the emotions because of it. But this time when I watched it, the emotions like got to me really strong, and the pacing didn't bother me because it had my full attention. I don't know, like it did. I just saw more this time watching it.
yeah, it's possible I'll feel like the pacing works better in a second viewing when I'm fully aware of like the point that it's going to get to, because you know, it is very well constructed, but it does also do a good job of like not necessarily being completely obvious what the end message is going to be until you're getting, you know, to a relative late point in the movie. Like there's definitely some points where you're thinking, oh, maybe the lesson is going to be this, or maybe the ultimate lesson that she learns is going to be this, and you know, what is the actual all the universe stuff like actually represent? Because honestly, like you could read like the one main universe that you see sort of play out later in the film, you know, because you're seeing tons of universes, you know, later in the film. There's the main one that I think you could argue, if you really wanted to, that's the only thing that really happens in the movie, and everything else is just a metaphor for like what's going on and like you know, emotionally for the characters. And everything else isn't really happening. It's just kind of like a visual representation of stuff. But
yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
I also think you like the first half more because the first half really reminds me of True Lies. Not just because Jamie Lee Curtis is in it.
I was going to say, I don't remember her doing a sexy dance in the start of this movie.
You don't remember that?
I do not. No.
Because we have different universes that we watched from.
Very good. Anytime we disagree in this review, you're just going to crack that joke. And it'll sweep it under the rug.
Multiverse card played.
But yeah, the action's really good. The fight scenes that are there are inventive. It also has it has at times a very silly sense of humor, because it'll like cut to a universe that's, you know, I won't spoil what they are here, but they're weird, they're different.
Yeah, if you've seen the trailer, you've seen them.
Yeah.
They're weird.
But like it somehow never takes away from like the emotion. Like even when it's doing like a montage where like there's something emotional happening, but it'll cut to these weird universes as well as the other ones that make a bit more sense. It never seems to take away from it. If anything, it's just sort of emphasizing the point. It doesn't matter how silly things are. The emotional core of what we're talking about is always going to be true. So in a way, it actually enhanced the messages at those points in the film rather than detract from it, because it was distracting that there was, you know, whatever. The audio listeners didn't get what I just did there, but the visual listeners got a great tease of what was to come. Yeah. If I was to tease someone about this movie, just to sort of like give something without context that won't spoil it because it'll make no sense to you, I would just lean in and go, bagel. And no one would get it.
Not unless they've seen the film.
Bagel. I've not seen a movie with a bagel so relevant to its plot since Well, maybe ever. I can't think of a movie with a bagel related.
We love our bagels here.
Yeah. I mean, no donuts, but I can enjoy a bagel.
What? You don't like bagels?
No, I do like bagel. No, I can enjoy a bagel,
okay.
but if I see one from a distance and I think it's a donut, I'm disappointed that it's a bagel. I need to know up front it's a bagel.
Okay, well, you can't have a donut with, onions and poppy seeds and garlic.
Well, no, I wouldn't want that.
Exactly.
Are you arguing bagels are superior because you can put those things on it?
I mean, I don't really want to go into this conversation, but if we must. I think bagels are more substantial. I don't hate myself after I eat them.
Well, obviously. There's everything that tastes better is guilt afterwards. This is not the shocking discovery.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, I'm glad we can have this conversation. Let's get back to the movie.
Oh dear. So yes. As far as other stuff goes, yeah, the music's pretty solid. Like, it has a really kind of upbeat vibe a lot of the time. It kind of has to like deal with a lot of change of like visual styles, and hell, even the aspect ratios get played with a little bit, which I'm always interested in sort of breaking that down a little. My understanding from watching the movie, obviously there's some that are 4:3, but the regular world is 185, which is close to a widescreen TV. You get little black bars at the top and bottom, but you don't really notice them because they're so small. But whenever someone is using or connecting to another universe, it goes wide into 2.35 to 1, so you get the big black bars coming in. And I assume in a theater it just went wider, as opposed to the effect on a TV where it kind of shrinks in a little bit to create the effect.
I'm sorry I missed this one in theaters. I really wanted to go. I just there's a lot of movies out at the same time that I wanted to go see that I missed. I was just too busy, I guess, with work and podcasting, my second job.
Sounds like I'm getting blamed for you not seeing this in the theater now.
Well, no, it depends on how you want to take that, but it's not my intention.
Feels like I'm getting blamed. Yeah, feels like a burden on the shoulders. Just
Stop playing. Let's move on.
Forgive me for trying to have some humor.
Yeah, anyway, I'm sorry that I missed it in theaters, because it would have been a really fun one to catch.
Yeah, I guess the way I describe this movie is full of energy, because the pacing never really lets up. And if anything, that's partly why I think the second half, at least on this first viewing, felt too long, is because it's cutting around constantly, and that's actually quite exhausting. It's like you think, oh, there's a lot of things that you're going through, so it should feel very fast, but it actually doesn't. Like, sometimes what feels quicker is when you've just got, like, if a movie's made up of like 5 really long scenes, I think that can go in really quick, because by the time you get through 3 scenes, oh shit, I'm halfway through the movie. Like, this time's flying in. As long as it's well directed, it works like that. But when you've got lots of little things, like, you're sort of going through it does end up like stacking up, and you feel like it's kind of exhausting. There's so much going on.
Yeah, it's nice that there are moments where, like, the music slows down and it gives you a moment to relax and like catch up. Some of the universes are just a bit more calm.
Yeah. There's one that's very what's the name of the director? It's very intentional. It looks like one of his films. Wong Kar-wai, I think his name is. I maybe jumble his name up a little bit there. But he did In the Mood for Love, and he's done a lot of like prestigious films. In fact, Michelle, you might even be in one or two of them.
That's why I haven't seen it.
But like there's a universe where it's a bit more glamorous, I'll just say, and that's kind of it's the one where Waylon's like in a suit and he looks really smart and not like this frumpy goofy guy that he does like in every other universe.
Yeah, he cleaned up all right. I actually didn't even really recognize him. Like, who's she looking at?
Yeah, if you look up In the Mood for Love and just see a couple of photos of that, you'll immediately go, oh yeah, it looks like this. This is what this looked like. So that was a very intentional choice, I think, to kind of, bring that in. Honestly, I was wondering if they were going to pull some sort of wacky thing where they actually had like a universe where she was like, I know she was Evelyn in every universe, but I wondered if they're going to pull something like, oh, we cut to a universe and it's Star Trek Discovery just for a cameo because in one universe she's on a starship or something. And
well, they definitely use footage from like red carpet events that is just Michelle Yeoh.
Oh, sure, but they're pretending that it's Evelyn, so it's fine.
Yeah.
But like, I actually almost respect the restraint to not like, ask for permission to do something wacky like that.
Giorgio was in one of the flashes when like there's a scene where it's just her face and it's just like 1,000 versions of her face that go by super fast.
You mean the scene that anyone that suffers from seizures should never watch? That scene? Yeah.
It's very intense.
Yes. If you suffer from epileptic seizures, probably not a movie you can watch, to be honest. There's a couple of very flashing sequences.
It is fun. It goes by so quickly. I imagine it would be really fun to go frame by frame and just to see all the work that was put into it. I think I saw like a nun that was a skull underneath it at one point. But yeah, in any case, maybe Giorgio's there. It
was a mess of it, but I can't even begin to like tell you what any of them were, because I know what moment you're talking about, but it was just sort of like flash, like one frame of each one, just like a machine gun. Yeah. So yeah, I think we'll give the spoiler warning and start talking about it, because I feel there's a lot to talk about in the movie. Yes. So we will get into the film. So full spoilers, you have been warned. I do want to talk about the opening of the movie still, because I think the opening is excellent. I do love the first tease that the universe stuff is happening, because you just seeing the security camera in the background, like all of a sudden Wayland's like, his body language has changed and he's like diving over the counter and like just and it's part of the performance.
He's become a ninja. Yeah,
and it's part of the performance of the actor that his body language does completely change when he shifts from the main universe, which is what I'm going to call like our universe of the movie, and then to Alpha Universe Wayland, which is what we come to know the one he's from, that's visiting, shall we say. And yeah, so like there's these teases in the background that this is happening, and but like there's so much energy in the way it's following Michelle Yeoh and in and out of the apartment and into the laundrette and all over the place, dealing with the customers, big nose lady, which
Jenny Slate,
yeah.
Mona Lisa.
Well, no, that's not what I'm calling. I agree with the joke, because she does have a big nose, but that's Evelyn calls her that.
That is what Evelyn calls her.
Yeah, Evelyn calls her that, and because there's a lot of like them talking in like Mandarin, like in front of people and just saying whatever they want because no one can understand it.
Yeah, it is pretty strategic.
Yeah. Which that's the other thing, the opening 10-15 minutes, there's a bit of it throughout the film, but the opening 15 minutes especially, there's a lot of like jumping between languages back and forth, because their daughter mostly just speaks English, and as we discover isn't very good with her Chinese, because she tries to greet her grandfather and it doesn't quite work out. But there's a lot of important stuff set up here. There's the moment she's looking at all the receipts and the bills and stuff on the table, and she's worried about what her father's going to think of all this, and he's not going to see that they've built this business that's thriving, and they've got this life. And Wayland says, yeah, but that's what you see, right? And she doesn't really like give him a proper answer. So like right away it sets up this theme of like, this is about reflection, this is about looking at the life that you have and maybe what you wanted or could have had instead. And like then it further goes into that, because when they go to the IRS meeting, it sets up that she has all these things that she starts doing but seemingly gives up. Like she wants to be a singer at one point, so they bought a karaoke machine. She wanted to be, I don't know, a writer at one point, so they bought something for that, and which is partly why they're in trouble. They're claiming all these expenses as part of their business, but it's like it's a laundrette, you can't claim a karaoke machine on a laundrette.
Well, they have parties.
That's true. They're having a party for Chinese New Year that night. That's true.
It gets busted out. We see it later on.
That's true. I don't know if they can. Have you ever seen a laundrette have a party?
I don't know. I think they're trying to establish that they have some sort of a relationship with their customers, not just like the ones that are always coming by, but like maybe they're like part of the community, you know?
Yeah, they're definitely going for that. Yeah, I think, you know, I the other thing that's so impressive about this opening is you really get a good sense of who at least the main three members of the family are. I mean, the grandfather as well to an extent, but he's kind of more of a plot device of a character, or you know, rather than a full-fledged character.
He becomes
himself.
more important in like the last third of the film.
Yeah. We sort of like, but it's more about like Evelyn's relationship with him, so it's still more about her than it is him specifically. But and she is the main character, don't get me wrong, but I think both Joy the daughter and Wayland the husband both like have a good amount of their own stuff that makes them feel really fully fledged.
Some of my biggest laughs though definitely came from the grandfather. Even in the flashback moments.
I mean, later on when we get Multiverse grandfather from another world, it's like he literally, not only does he have like a super fast wheelchair that's like a rocket, he seemingly makes like a exo mech suit out of random computer
it's very
parts.
Starship Troopers, yeah.
Well, yeah, it's Starship Troopers, but if you look at it, it's literally just like, oh, this is like part of a modem like here that's connected to something else, and I'm like,
yeah.
What did he do?
Actually, I think we see it in the new Avatar trailer.
He MacGyvered an exo suit. It's an interesting visual. I'll give it that.
Alpha universe seems to be the smartest universe. They call themselves the Alpha because they're the first ones that actually thought of were able to travel through multiverses.
And it was Evelyn from that universe, who's now dead, but she is the one who actually believed it could be done and discovered it. And like obviously it turns out that the daughter from that universe is the villain of everything, like because when Wayland first shows up in the elevator and he explains, oh, there's this great villain that's growing in the darkness and is going around and she has to be defeated, and I've been searching every universe for the person who can stop her, and that's led me to you, Evelyn. You're the one. And it's interesting because later on he also says that the reason why why she's the Evelyn that might be able to do something is because she's like not good at anything, but she keeps trying. Because she's tried all these different things. So because it's the classic thing of like every time you have a choice of a left or a right, like that makes a new universe because there's two outcomes, right? So the idea is that because she's like tried to do all these things and failed at all of them, every single one has an alternate universe where she succeeded at that one particular thing, and it makes her kind of unique and special in a weird way.
It's also that it's a bit later on that it's revealed, but every decision that we make can branch off into two different universes. So the one where you went for it and the one where you didn't. And somehow this Evelyn is the version that always picked the worst decision every single time, apparently.
Which is important for the themes of the film, because ultimately, because obviously when she first like gets a taste of being a movie star and look at this other world, she's like, oh, this is weird, but this is what would happen if I didn't come to America with my husband. God damn it! I want to go there. She would
become Michelle Yeoh.
She's like insisting that she wants to like brag to him about it, and it's almost a little bit mean. I mean, I know he already had the divorce papers, so it's kind of like, maybe she's feeling pissy about him right now because he's sort of sprung that on her.
It's a little bit like she's blaming him, like this is my life sucks because I chose you.
But of course, the whole message of the film ultimately, at least part of the message anyway, is that no. Like, even like whatever you have, like it doesn't matter what you don't have. Like there's something to cherish in what you do have, and obviously by the end, that's something that it really comes out. And but we'll get to a lot of that stuff. But I did like not that it's meant to be a surprise because they reveal it like right away. But like as soon as he said there was someone who was the villain, I'm like, it's the daughter. Like there's no way it's anyone but the daughter.
I mean, they're already antagonistic from the beginning of the film before any multiverse stuff happens.
Oh yeah, because she's like, she says you're getting fat. Evelyn says that to Joy, our daughter, and
she
things like that.
Picked the wrong thing to say.
Yeah. I mean, even I know that's not what you say to a young woman. Like that's just not. It's not a smart
Well,
move.
it's also, I mean, it's like the last thing that Joy needed to hear when she needed to hear something else loving from her mother in that moment.
Yeah, because she feels judged because she's like her mother is not wanting to tell her her grandfather that she's gay, right? Because she's got this girlfriend,
Becky.
there you go, and she wants to like tell her grandfather that she's gay, and Michelle Yeoh's like, no, look, he's really old. And like I said, the actor is literally like 90 when he was shooting this, so he is old.
He's from a different generation. He won't understand. Just feel grateful that you have a mother who is okay with it. But she's clearly not okay with it.
But she also says that, you know, he may have a heart attack and die. Like, you might kill him. Like that. Like, do you really want to kill him? Which is a lot of pressure to put on someone and guilt to put on their shoulders, you know?
Yes. Yeah. Another theme of the film.
Yes. So, well, that's the thing. Like, we learned that he was like that with her, and he disowned her for a long time for leaving and going to the US with this young man that he clearly didn't appreciate or like. And what's funny is Waylon keeps calling him father throughout the film. And it's just, obviously he's trying to be respectful and like, you know, you're the father of the family, because you're my father-in-law. But eventually in the movie, like, he turns around and goes, "Stop calling me father." Not in English, obviously, but I
Yeah, it's also reflective of like when we first meet Becky, and she says Becky calls Evelyn by her first name, and says, and then quickly follows up with Mrs. Wang, like, clearly you told me to not call you by your first name. And then she sees Waymond again and calls him Mr. Wang, and he says, "No, call me Raymond."
Yeah, well, that's the other big thing about the movie is, like, obviously, like, the value in what you have, but it's very much about optimism versus nihilism. And Waymond represents this like really optimistic character. You know, he's literally leaving googly eyes around and things, and Evelyn's getting pissed about it when they're talking about the audit. And he's like, "Look at, well, you know, we've built this business, we've got things to be happy about," and she's just feeling the stress and everything's too. And part of it, this is her fault. When they go to the IRS meeting, I kind of stop feeling sympathy for her to an extent, because when Jamie Lee Curtis, as much as she's been kind of mean, right? I'm like, wait, you're trying to claim all this shit on your like, I'm kind of on the IRS's side here, to be honest. You're kind of taking the piss. Like, you're clearly, do like whatever. Anyway, so like this whole idea, and even the googly eyes, when we talk about the bagel later, I think the googly eyes are actually a very intentional like image, because it's kind of the inverse of the bagel when you think about the visual of it.
Sure.
So, but yeah, so like the idea that like she's going towards nihilism, and the evil version of her daughter from this other universe, which you could
is like full into nihilism,
full nihilist, basically wants to like just like, I don't want to say commit suicide, but that's effectively to an extent what it feels like when she's like, "I'm just going to go away into the big donut," or the big bagel. Wishful thinking. But like,
you don't want everything donut.
No, I don't. I don't want everything bagel either.
Everything bagels are delicious.
Yeah, but in the movie, and everything bagel is literally everything that's ever existed on the bagel, not just food items.
Right.
I don't even want all food in a bagel. Like, I mean, I don't want to pick something that's not suitable in a bagel. Beef. Well, I don't mean, isn't it? Mayonnaise is disgusting. I mean, actually, beef might work in a bagel, to be honest. The bagel's effectively a sandwich. Meat's perfectly fine. Jelly. You wouldn't put jelly on a bagel.
What? Yes, you could.
Jelly, as in what you call Jello, right? Jelly to me is the dessert that shakes.
Yeah, I just picked. Obviously, a lot of people make bagel sandwiches with mayonnaise. I just picked something gross and made with animal products, which you should avoid.
Yes. Which is funny because in the movie, Alpha Wayland at one point gets really excited about the cream cheese because like,
there's no cows in his universe anymore.
They're all dead or something. Yes. So Anyway, so you got the nihilism, and you got Wayland who represents this optimism, and it's kind of like trying to like win out with the optimism by the end, and so you've got that like at play, and you've also got the actual just family stuff, and the idea that she's kind of being to her daughter what her father was to her, and being really judgmental and being really specific about like what she expects of her, and always being disappointed, and not in a way that makes her look a villain and unlikable. Like it all feels kind of natural enough to an extent. You know, she's still very enjoyable to watch as she's going through these early parts of the film, despite the fact that you clearly look at it and go, you shouldn't have said that to your daughter. You should be nicer to your husband. To the point where when he pulls out like the divorce papers, and he's clearly like kind of guilty about it, it's that, you know, he's not an angry man who wants a divorce. He's kind of like, I think we're at this point maybe, because he admits later on, we see like a scene where he says, oh, this other like couple that he knows, like they actually worked things out after they started talking about having a divorce, because it kind of like forced them to really address like what was going on in their marriage. And that was kind of maybe his hope here as well.
And he says in another scene also was that the only way he can get her attention to talk about something is if there's an emergency. Otherwise, she just won't listen.
Yeah, she's too busy. Everything's too important, so can't talk.
Well, everything's on her shoulders, right?
No time for googly eyes. But I mean, hell, even that idea, right? The idea that he's the optimist. He got divorce papers drawn up in the hope that it would help fix his. How many people would do that? That is like the most optimistic sounding thing I have ever heard in my life, and it's kind of endearing. And he's a really likable kind of guy as well. You know, he's really nice with the customers. He's joking around with them. You know.
Yeah, even the guy that's clearly stealing from them. Oh, it ain't another 20.
And kind of hitting on his wife as well. He's like, oh, you wear the same perfume as my wife.
He's a close sniffer.
Yeah.
Not cool.
So, yeah, like this ultra optimist guy. He's the heart of the film in so many ways. Like, and because I wasn't sure like how important. Because part of me thought at the start, like, okay, she's going to go off on this multiverse adventure, and he's not going to be that important in the grand scheme of things. But by the end, I'm like, no, he's the heart of the whole thing. Like, he's what's. You know,
yeah, it's really there's two like big things that happen. Obviously, it's mending her relationship with her husband that comes first, and then it's also mending the relationship with her daughter, who's the big bad of it. And they're just so, you know, far apart from each other, even though they have a lot in common. But like, you know, those are the two. He's like the mini boss fight that helps her, you know, defeat the big bad one at the end.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, you could read the whole movie, because, yeah, obviously there's this emotional, like, heart-to-heart that they have in what it seems like the main universe towards the end, around the party that they're having, the laundrette. And it kind of feels like they're almost, like, addressing, like, what's going on in the movie with the multiverse stuff, but they're not really. And you could almost read this as the only thing that's really happening, and everything else is just a representation of, like, oh, my daughter's going to leave like I left my father, and I'm going to lose her, and maybe I'm willing to let her go because that's just easier, and I don't have to like go through the effort, and like I'm too worried about what she's going to turn out to be and things. And the idea that the daughter's starting to like resent her mother and wanting to leave and wanting to, you know, just separate herself from her parents because of that is kind of what the nihilism represents. And like, so there's a lot of smart like meanings behind what's going on in the movie, which I really like.
She also, you know, she's the younger generation that is kind of nihilistic. I mean, they're coming into a world that's got climate change and, you know, people who are so divided politically. Like, everything kind of feels like nihilistic to that generation already.
Yeah. I feel old because you're saying that generation and not our generation. But
well, I mean, maybe our generation, but
I guess
it doesn't mean it's not our generation when
Yeah.
you say that generation.
Sure, but I mean, no, technically, yes, this is a Zoomer and we're millennials, so technically it is another generation. But I feel like I feel like us
We
and
are
the
old. At least I'm old. It's
yeah,
not a
but
big deal.
I feel like us and the Zoomers are united against the Boomers. Come on now, like
Yeah, I suppose.
there's a divide here that I think we're still on the right side of. I'm just gonna put it out there.
It can be overwhelming, and it could be like a, you know, her mother has so many expectations of her, and instead of just taking them all on and doing what pleasing her mom, instead is just, I can't do any of this that you're asking of me, so I'm just gonna not do anything. I'm just gonna sit it out.
Yeah, And I'm going to talk about a lot of this stuff in order, because I think when I'm talking about the actual mechanics of the multiverse stuff, it's easier to go through it in order. But the one thing I want to bring up just now from later on is in the the movie star world, where she meets up with she meets like her husband Wayland, or sorry, Waymond, not Wayland.
Not Wayland.
Well, Wayland's an actual name. I've never heard Waymond before. I said this before we started, but it sounds like I'm doing an impression of Jonathan Ross, who can't pronounce his R's. It's when I'm saying Waymond, but that's his name. His name's Waymond. But he, she runs into him at this premiere, and it's the first time she's seen him since she decided not to leave with him, right? This is the idea that was the decision that changed everything. So instead she went and trained to be like a kung fu like expert, and like she has like this mentor woman who trained her at
she like
secluded retreat.
helped her fight off some guys who got her in a corner.
Yes, in an alleyway. Yeah. And she trained her to be a
the
badass.
ways of kung fu.
Which then turned into a movie star, which I'm like, okay, this is... I mean, I'm sure like Michelle Yeoh's backstory is not exactly this, but the fact that she's martial artist and became an actor sounds a little bit like her.
Yes.
But she meets Waymond there, and they sit next to each other, and they sort of rekindle like outside. They have this kind of like moment and talk about, oh, what if we did stay together? Do you ever wonder about it and stuff? But it all bubbles up to like kind of where the movie starts to make a heartful turn, because there is a portion where it feels like she is going down the nihilist route, because she's sort of experiencing things like her daughter. And I'll go into the specifics of that later. But there's a moment where he says, "I would give up," because he's clearly doing well. He's got a fancy suit. His hair's slicked back. He's clearly a successful man. She's a movie star, clearly filthy rich, and he says, "I'd trade all this. I would happily do laundry and like taxis with you." Yeah. And
he says that. Like that also sounds nice, basically.
Yeah, it's this idea that even with all this success, he still wonders about. I kind of wish I'd stayed with her. Or I wish she never made that choice. I wish she chose to come with me. And
this is the only like Waymond that we see that's not really the optimist. He has a little bit of that, but he is very he's not goofy like in the other universes.
He's not goofy. I would argue that him still thinking this way still makes him ultimately an optimist, but
he pushes her away in this also. He tells her like that option would have been good also. Like, I'm okay with just doing laundry and taxes with you forever. But he still kind of rejects her in this universe.
Well, yeah, because he thinks that she's not going to like go through with it, because she goes to kiss him or whatever, and like he's like, "Don't give me false hope," like, and yeah, he is different a little bit, but I still think he's ultimately an optimist, and I think the colder version of him that's here, I think the idea is that this is him that like where she made that choice and didn't go with him. It did make him a little more jaded. It did make him a little colder, but ultimately he still comes through with these sentiments that he still wants to be with her. To me, this was one of the most heartfelt moments of the whole movie, is that
totally.
This successful version of him wishes that he could have a mundane life with her. He would rather that than what he has, or at the very least it sounds like it wouldn't be so bad, and like it would be worth the price of exchanging his life for whatever he could have with her. And it kind of makes you go, oh, because obviously if our Evelyn is experiencing all these different universes at the same time at this point, like that's going to make her feel a bit guilty, because she kind of wanted to rub it in earlier on, like, aha, like the life where I didn't pick you is so much better, and I've got all this money, I'm a movie star, red carpet,
but she still invites Waymond.
I'm a badass.
She invited him to that premiere, so part of her in that universe also misses him and wonders what if.
Yeah, but I think our Evelyn didn't know that necessarily. When she was going to brag about how much better her life was. So it's I think that a lot of that heart comes from kind of that idea, because the whole thing with like, so the daughter became this like monster, this the other version, Alpha Joy, and that's the irony of her name being Joy is not lost on me, but like she became this monster because she pushed too far and started to experience all of her versions at the same time, and it basically drove her into this nihilism. And I kind of like sort of take that as like it's literally just a representation. Well, not literally, because it's a representation. You know what I mean? Shut up. It's this representation of like the weight of all these expectations, because she could be any of all these things, especially at this point in her life when she's just, I don't know, she's about college age. She's maybe deciding what she's going to do and what she's going to pursue, and all of this is open right now to her. So it's kind of that weight of all of them like on her at the same time kind of thing.
Yeah, totally. It's actually a lot of the same themes from Turning Red, which also came out this year and was a great movie about mother-daughter relationships. Of just these heavy expectations, and I think her just experiencing everything all at once, whatever, it makes everything feel like nothing really matters. And so but she's taking the nothing matters as like, what's the point? Like, I can just do anything I want and in any universe now, because I'm already experiencing what life could be like, but it doesn't mean anything to her, because she doesn't have anything to balance it out. So,
but of course, the yin and yang of like, so the everything bagel represents this nihilism, and nothing matters because everything's all happening at once. And then the googly eyes, which are the inverse of the bagel, because the bagel is this, it looks like a black circle basically with a white center. The googly eyes, of course, are the opposite of that. They're a black circle surrounded by a white circle or oval. So is it literally the inverse, and it's the idea, but if everything's also happening, then you can find the good things in there too. So that's kind of the flip of that later on. So all of this is to say that Joe, just because you brought up Turning Red, I was going to say, so that movie, it was, the metaphor was like, she's going through puberty, right? And she's getting her period and stuff, and that's represented by the red panda, right? The third things,
the werewolfing.
Yeah, I was going to say the flip of this is that because it's an older character, it's menopause, but it's represented by multiverse. No,
I suppose. I don't know. I haven't gone through that yet.
I don't know. You're not that old. Yeah. You're still quite young. You're vibrant. You're fine.
Yeah, I'm alright. I'm 37. It's not too bad.
I was going to name it. I was going to put a number on it.
It's okay.
Okay.
I don't care if people know.
Okay. Don't mention my age. So that's a joke. I don't care.
I had to think about it for a second. How old are you?
52. Anyway, what was I gonna say? Yeah, so you've got like when Michelle Yeoh's character Evelyn starts to experience everything at the same time as well, and she starts to kind of seemingly be tempted to be just as nihilist and go into the everything bagel with joy. The idea of these small moments and her husband being the one to pull her back. It is because there's a line early on at the start of the film where she's talking to Joy about how Wayman's kind of useless. It's like, oh, sometimes I wonder like how he would do without us. And obviously that's like a multiverse thing, right? It's a little tease for we're going to be seeing how each of them do without each other and so on. But it's kind of ironic that by the end of the film, it's like no, how important he is to her in terms of like her making the choices she makes in life and being there.
Every time she's distracted and isn't able to be a part of something important that's going on, Wayman's the one who like fixes it. Like he's able to make things better when she's not interfering.
Yeah, it's
when she's not doubting him.
It's this funny thing where she is constantly saying that he's not being responsible and doing goofy shit and he's not helping, and she thinks everything's on her shoulders. But yeah, she's constantly zoning out when the multiverse stuff happens, and he's constantly like covering for her and like making things right with with Jamie Lee Curtis and solving problems left and right. Yeah, so it's like there's a little bit, again, it comes back to this idea of recognizing what you have and sort of appreciating what you have. So no, but to go back through kind of the actual just the raw plot of the movie, they go to the IRS building, not headquarters, because I don't imagine it's the headquarters, but
no, I'm sure there's There's one,
the local,
not in every town, but there's
Yeah.
one at least in every state and probably nearby.
yeah,
I think they're in Simi Valley, which is not too far from where I live, or where I grew up anyway. I live a bit further now.
yeah. So they go to the local IRS building, and there's little teases here. At one point, Wayman's looking at like an old Asian couple who are kissing each other goodbye for the day. And there's just this little sad moment where he's clearly thinking, "Oh, we may not have that now. Like maybe."
Yeah, because he's seen the divorce papers.
But like I said, it's when they go out the elevator, he first sort of turns in front of her and like gives her all these weird explanations, and she sees like some of her backstory kind of play out, like in front of her, because he puts these like weird like almost Bluetooth headset things into her ears, and says, "Here's some instructions," and he writes it on the back of the divorce paper, like, "Swap your shoes over and then think you're in the janitor's closet," or I can't remember the exact instructions, but that was two of them. So, and she does that during the meeting with Jamie Lee Curtis, who is very proud of her Auditor of the Year awards, or whatever they were called. And immediately when she showed them off, I went, "Those are butt plugs."
You had that thought immediately, huh?
Immediately I had that thought. Those look like butt plugs. Little did I know when I thought that they were going to be used in a very butt plug-esque fashion later on.
One of the things that really made me laugh in this was when she gets the earpieces on and she's starting to see her whole life flash before her, and she even sees her own birth, and the doctor handing her over and telling her dad, "We're sorry, it's a girl," and you just see his face fall. Like that made me laugh.
Yeah, I think culturally I've heard this about China. At least I don't know if this is still prevalent now, but this idea that like they hope for boys and are disappointed with girls.
Yeah, it's some sort of honor thing, I guess, because when China had their one-child policy, because of population reasons, I suppose, they tended to not want to raise just a girl. Like a boy was more honorable to the family or whatever. I'm not exactly sure.
She even says repeatedly in this film that he's of a different generation. He's of an older generation that may not understand like his granddaughter's sexuality, and so it kind of it fit into like what we'd heard about him up until that point. But yeah, so it sets up some of the stuff with like her going to the it's like she's both in the janitor's closet in this other universe where she went to the janitor's closet instead, right? Because that's why he says that in the elevator. It's like you can either go left to your meeting or you can go right to the janitor's closet. And the idea is that because he's presented that choice, it means that obviously she goes to the meeting because she's not a crazy person, but it means that technically she made the choice not to go the other way, and therefore there's now a universe where she went the other way. And that's where they're having this conversation. Now, there is a little bit of I think on a second viewing, I'll probably take them in a lot better. There was definitely some things with the multiverse rules that I thought were a little... they weren't like super clear early on, because there was like two different things happening. There was one thing where... the main thing that was happening is that whenever she like tapped into another universe, which is what he was trying to teach her to do, is she basically gets the experiences, at least for a little while, of that version of herself in this other universe. So we get a glimpse of that other universe, but it's very quickly in her head, and then she comes back and she can do kung fu, or she can do whatever skill she's taken from the other universe. But alternatively, you also have like Alpha Waymond, who is like hopping to this universe and staying in like her husband's body for extended periods of time. And there was definitely times where I was wondering about the villains, like how much of this is like them traveling and hopping. Like I had to get around the idea that there was two different things happening. There was one thing where people were hopping into bodies and like just staying around doing stuff, and then the other thing which was going to another universe to like fetch some information and using it in the universe they're still in. Both
times I watched the movie, I actually had trouble keeping track of which universe is her universe.
Sure.
Because a lot of things happen. She attacks Jamie Lee Curtis at one point. I'm like, well, did that happen in the universe where she's being audited, or is this like a separate one now?
That's a weird way to phrase it, because technically she's been audited in both.
Yeah, so I had a hard time keeping track of which one was happening in her home universe, her home base universe. You know?
So basically, what I think is going on there with that is that I think when she made the choice to punch Jamie Lee Curtis, because she basically gets worried that she could. At one point, when she's in the other universe in the janitor's closet, when they're at this meeting, like the door gets broken down like The Shining with like an axe or something, and it's like Jamie Lee Curtis's character, but she's like an evil version who's been possessed by the villain or something, and she's like super menacing, and it's a really good performance. Like Jamie Lee Curtis is clearly just having fun with this.
Oh yeah, totally. She had a blast in this.
She gets to be Michael Myers in this movie at points.
I thought the same thing.
Yeah, but because of that, like, you know, it makes Evelyn kind of on edge. And after they're told you can have till the end of the day to redo all your paperwork and come back, and I won't, like, you know, take your business and home from you. But she's walking over to them in the elevator, and Evelyn freaks out and punches her. I'm assuming at this point, the choice to punch her is where it splinters, and a lot of the action crazy stuff we see in the movie at this point is the one where she punched her. But then the real one that kind of like persists at the end, and where we get like the happy ending where she has the heart-to-heart with the daughter, I think is the one that she didn't punch her, and that's like where the more normal world persisted, if you will, because the punch is kind of a crazy change.
It would have been good if we had like a, you know, because a lot of times when they show that there's a divide, like the actual screen will have a crack in it, and we see two images that are slightly off, like things are going one way and then another way. So I think if she made the decision to attack her, maybe that would have been more clear, because then like things get real crazy after that.
Yeah, but obviously the world that we kind of end up on, that's kind of the persistent one going forward, is not that one where all the crazy action happens.
It can't be, right? Yeah. Because Jamie Lee Curtis was attacked, and then after she comes out of being taken over by the wrestler version of her, she you know, it's like, why did you staple this piece of paper to my forehead? It's like, why would she give her any more chances after being attacked by her seemingly twice, according from
no, exactly.
her character's perspective? So
it's not the same world, yeah. And I think,
I guess it can't be, but like, there's no real clear like divide, other than like what you may think have happened. Like the movie doesn't tell you that there's a divide here.
Well, I think it's quite clear though in hindsight. Like when you actually stop and look at what happens in each one, clearly events can't be happening in both. I think it's actually a very intentional choice not to make it a clear divide. I think the movie doesn't want to like tell you at that moment where it splinters that we're now in two distinct universes, because it wants you to kind of like consider both as equal. So it's kind of like presenting them side by side together as it goes.
There is a moment when I think when she first experiences the celebrity universe, where she tells Alpha Waymond that she doesn't want to stay in her own universe. She wants to go to that one. And he like freaks out and says, you can't. So you have to stay in your own. And this is the universe where they're eating bagels and Jamie Lee Curtis is a wrestler trying to attack them. So I don't know. It's still unclear to me like which universe they're in, but you know, ultimately, like I still enjoy the movie so much and the messages that come along with it that I can look past it. It's a little bit frustrating if you like try to think about, like, keep track of which one is her home universe.
I think the problem with the thought process in this particular case is I don't think the movie cares that much about this, because it's not because you know, it's not like we're watching I don't know, Coherence or something, you know, where it's about the mechanics. This movie's less about the mechanics and more about the emotional message of what the characters go through. And it's kind of like what I said earlier about how you could almost read the main universe is the only thing that's real and everything else is just a representation. So therefore it doesn't really matter what the rules are to an extent of the multiverse hopping, even though technically it's, you know, we're being told it's happening and we're getting these rules where like to travel to another universe's body to get their skills, they have to do something really random but specific to each universe that will trigger it. It may be eating something weird, or as we see later, like two of the henchmen that are coming after, because you know the villain knows that she's in there and she's, you know, Alpha Joy's hunting her, you know, this version of Evelyn, and sends in a bunch of henchmen that take over the bodies of various security guards and civilians and stuff. two of them who are attacking Evelyn need these extra skills to deal with what she has, and the trigger for it is to shove an object up their ass, right? So that's where
gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah, so basically Evelyn's like fighting with the guy, and it's a really funny action sequence where she's like sort of keeping the butt plug trophy away from him, which leads to maybe the most insane visual of the movie, where the security guard with no pants on, it's pixelated so you don't see his cock, but he is, you know, he's got a shirt on, but he's naked from the waist down, and he comes jumping in slow motion to land on the butt plug, and it is...
Did you think it was strange that it was pixelated?
It's, I don't know, the movie's got that kind of tone that it kind of worked.
I mean, yeah, it's fine. I just thought it was a little weird.
Were you disappointed you didn't see some cock? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I mean, it would be nice to add it to my spreadsheet, but it's all right. Like, I'll get over it. I just thought it was a bit strange that they just would include pixelation in a film.
I think it's funnier that it's pixelated.
I mean, because you see, like, the trophies hanging out of them while they're fighting and stuff.
Yes.
And they're wearing clothes still. So, like, you could have just had him in his tidy whities jumping towards the trophy.
Well, not him. The other guy's still wearing clothes, because he shoved something else up his ass that we didn't see.
Yes.
Yeah.
But, like, clearly, like, that's still an option that they could have gone with.
Well, this guy went full throttle. He really believed in put his effort into it.
I just mean, like, that way you wouldn't have to pixelate it.
Yeah, but it wouldn't be as funny. Like the shot of him coming over the desk, like it's the Matrix with he's you know, he's got his knees up and that sort of the Spider-Man jump. Like, it's funny because he's naked and he's pixelated.
It is a funny scene. Yeah.
Yeah.
It would have been funny in tidy whities.
Okay, tidy whities, sure. In tidy whities, maybe it'd still be funny. But I don't know. I got a laugh at it, but
yeah, it was definitely very funny.
Yeah, but this is actually after the first big fight sequence, which is Alpha Waymond taking on all security guards after Evelyn punches Jamie Lee Curtis. And there's a lot of fun stuff here where he's kind of like there's a good pace to it, where even when he stops for a moment to like put the little the rocks from the fish tank into his fanny pack so he can hit them with it. And even when he ends the fight and he kind of like sort of does it in a way where the fanny pack like goes around his waist again and he just clips it in. You know, it's all very smooth and there's a lot of, you know, choreographed stuff going on, and like it's very stylish. That's the first time the movie goes ultra wide into the, you know, the 2.35:1 ratio. Like it's like, oh, this movie's getting inventive, and this, you know, the pacing's like, you know, this stuff is like you need to pay attention, you need to keep up with it. There's so much going on.
It does sort of feel like each universe has its own director, almost.
Yeah, to an extent, yeah.
Or just some sort of style that they're channeling.
So yeah, she fights Jamie Lee Curtis. She's on the run. There's a lot of running around in this office building from bad guys, and like he's explaining more of the plot. He explains that Evelyn in the Alpha world discovered all this shit, was killed by... I can't remember what the name was they gave her, but it turns out to be Joy.
Chewbacca.
Oh, it wasn't Chewbacca.
No. I think that's what she calls it at one point. She can't get the name right.
Yeah, but she, you know, she learns all this stuff. We see in the Alpha world that he's riding around in a van with like a sort of like. Do you know the first time you see Doc Brown in the 50s in Back to the Future, and he's got that helmet on, where he's trying to do the mind like reading device?
Yeah, it's like that, but with like light up sunglasses.
Yeah. He's got that on his head, and that's like him traveling. That's what he's wearing to travel to other bodies around the multiverse. Before
we move on, I just want to say the scene at the office where she's starting to get all these instructions. That's what it reminded me of True Lies, where it's all of a sudden we're getting like this woman who thinks that her life is ordinary and to the point where it's kind of boring and she wants excitement.
Okay.
And her husband turns out to be this like super spy, not really, you know, but like he's great at karate, and he's or kung fu with a fanny pack, and all of a sudden she has this exciting life, but instead of being into it, she's like, nope, too much to do today, come back next week.
And that reminds me, one of the line deliveries that I really loved was after he does have the action scene with the guards, and he comes over and he says something to the effect of, you either come with me and like learn how to defeat this great evil, or stay here and die. And she just says something like, I'm just gonna lie down here and die. Like, she just because
she is not into to being involved in any of this.
Yeah, because the only thing that I would disagree with in your comparison to True Lies, which I never thought of, but I can see what you're coming from actually, at least in this section of the movie, is the idea that she wants the excitement, because I think it's actually very much that she's so down in her life that she doesn't want anything else. She's just
I think it's more that she's definitely daydreaming of it, because she is stopped by the scene in the movie that she's watching in the laundromat of these two, looks like a Bollywood film or something, where two lovers are singing to each other, and she has this like moment where she stops and like fantasizes, and she's really into the love scene, and like she does long for something. Her life is crushing her because of the weight of everything that she's put on herself.
Yeah, okay, I can see what you're saying. So yeah, from here, like, obviously I think at this point in the middle of the movie it's hard to kind of like gauge the order of a lot of stuff. Obviously, before anything else, we should probably talk about when Alpha Joy shows up. She's taken over the body of regular Joy and comes in, and she changes outfits like every 2 seconds because she's swapping between multiverse, like,
she can do that
ideas. Yeah, she's got all these powers because she's super villain, right? She's got like this 70s outfit on, and then she like makes a guard basically explode, but he explodes it at confetti and stuff like that. Yeah. Then she uses 2 giant dildos to beat the other one to death, which so
it's very Saints Row.
Yeah, so the movie's not afraid to have a wackier sense of humor, but I think from here, some of the other universes that are established, because when it transitions to everywhere, it's this idea that that's when she starts to sort of be everywhere at once, right? That's where she's starting to like actually experience all these other worlds, and
everything, I think. Yeah.
No, everything's the first thing.
Oh, okay, yeah, everything, everywhere. You're right.
Yeah, everywhere's the second part. And obviously some of them were introduced in the prior part, because the movie actress one keeps going. We keep getting that throughout the whole movie. We also get the hot dog fingers universe, where she's in a lesbian relationship with Jamie Lee Curtis. They're a couple in this universe, but everyone's got hot dog fingers, including like because we see like the Bollywood dance scene again, but they've both got hot dog fingers.
And we get a 2001 scene.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, we get the 2001 parody with the apes, but they've got so they're bad ape suits, but with hot dog fingers.
Yeah, they're better at slapping.
Yeah, but later on though, the optimist part of this is like, yeah, but even in the stupid world with hot dog fingers, we get really good with our feet. Like things work out. Like we find a way. Life finds a way. Obviously, Jeff Goldblum.
And I imagine this is the moment where when she actually like understands that being in a gay relationship can be beautiful and nice too, and so maybe she can connect more with her daughter because she understands that.
Yeah, obviously that's why it's there. I don't know if it's like as soon as like she's in that moment, but certainly like experiencing that.
Not the first time, but like that universe is there for that reason.
The first time it's like this horrific thing, not because of the gay romance, but because like Jamie Lee Curtis has got hot dog fingers and she's coming at her. Like,
and they have like ketchup and mustard built into them or something.
Oh, it's yeah. They start like, it's almost like they start like just like drilling mustard and ketchup when they get aroused, I think.
Something like that.
Yeah, that's what was going on.
It's really gross.
Yeah, it's disgusting. And then you've got the universe that everyone talks about from the movie, which is the one where there's no life evolved, so they're just rocks. So it's like her and her daughter, Alpha Joy, having this conversation as rocks.
Which I thought was hilarious.
Oh, it's funny. Yeah, it's just a subtitled conversation.
Yeah.
And then eventually, when she becomes optimist towards the end, they get googly eyes, and the Joy Rock tries to commit suicide by going off the edge of the cliff, and it's this really like bizarrely sad but funny like sequence. I think that's the other thing that I would really point out as well, is that obviously right from the start it's like, okay, there's main universe Joy and there's Alpha Joy who's the villain, But at a certain point when they're talking to each other, that stops mattering, and it's just, no, this is just Evelyn and Joy. Like, it still represents her daughter, and this is still about what, you know, which is why, to an extent, I almost kind of like, none of this really happened. This was all just a representation of like the tornado of thought in her head as she's dealing with her father and her like, you know, living up to her father, dealing with her daughter and how she treats her daughter, dealing with her husband and how she treats her husband. Like, you know, I think that's part of, like, because at a certain point they just all, it kind of doesn't matter anymore that they're different universes.
I guess, I mean, I suppose the people who would have remembered would be her and Joy at the end of it.
Yes.
And we don't really get that conversation, so we don't know if that happens or not. But so if it was real, they would have had a conversation between the two of them.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of what I'm saying. Like, when they have their heart to heart, where they have the fight and like Joy's going to leave forever, but she kind of like, you know, wins her back over and talks about optimism and talks about what her father has done for her, and that's why her father. That's why Wayman's so important to her, is because he's always there to like prop her up and like in ways that she never really noticed before.
The things that she has missing in her life, he has to fill in to balance her out.
Yeah. Again, going back to the idea of the yin and the yang, right? The googly eyes and the bagel, which are the opposite of each other. Which is literally, you know, black and white and black. You know, it's literally the color scheme of that. So, I don't think that's an accident by any means. So, but yeah, at a certain point, like the Joy and the Evelyn conversations, it stops mattering that it's really not her daughter technically. There is some fun stuff though. There's a brief moment in the middle before it switches to the second half where Wayman's there and he's like, and she's tried to explain to him that this universe stuff's happening, and this sets up the Ratatouille joke where she's like, no, it's like that movie where where the chef's been controlled by the raccoon, you know, and you mean you talk about Ratatouille? It's like, no, what does she call it?
Raccoon Cooney.
Raccoon Cooney. Which sets up a joke, because then when we start hopping from multiverse to multiverse, we see there's one where she's this chef and the rival chef in the restaurant is really good, but then she reveals that there's a raccoon under his chef's hat who's controlling him by pulling his hair.
Did not expect that to happen.
Yeah, but then later on this gets like sweet and amazingly funny when like she jumps on his shoulders and tries to like control him by using his hair to try and help him get the raccoon back, because she called animal control. And then it flips and goes, no, you get on my shoulders and pull my hair. And then that's how they... Oh, this sounds insane to say out loud. But it works in the context of the movie. It's
insane to watch also, but it does work, yeah. I mean, I dare you not to smile at that scene.
But there is this portion where she's like trying to explain to them this is going on. But they do see her like fight and like do stuff that she could never do before. And kind of like, wait, what's going on? Like all of a sudden... But, you know, because this Wayman is, like, there for a while and is, like, they're trying to, like, de-escalate things the entire time. You know, as the big showdown seemingly about to happen where they're going to go after the bagel and all the hench people are like, coming for them and stuff. He's trying to de-escalate the entire time. There's a sad moment in the movie where Alpha Wayman dies because Joy finds him in the Alpha universe. And like he says, he goes to kiss her because he's like, "Oh, this is my last chance to get to kiss you." Because you know his version of Evelyn's dead, so he goes for a kiss, but he dies before he actually gets to do it. It's this really sad thing where she realizes that he just died, like
by his own daughter.
Yeah. So, and I think there's actually some symbolism there. I think when I stop and think about it, you know, the idea that if you look at just the visually what's happening. This idea that the part of like her husband that is passionate for her has just died, and all that's left is this version that exists now. Obviously by the end, like they rekindle and she's learned all the right lessons and stuff, but in that moment that's kind of like, if you want to just read that scene on its own, that's kind of what's just happened, is the version that's madly in love with her has just died and it's back to just this one who's thinking of divorce. You know, so like any good science fiction, there's a lot of meaning behind just about everything that happens, but all of the scenes are filled with so much style and there's so much like thought that goes into them and the pacing and how they're performed that it never feels just fluffy. Like I say, I do think there's so much in the back half that, and you could have condensed it down a bit and made the same points, There's a lot of multiverse hopping where she's talking to Joy and stuff, where you could cut some of that down and it probably make it a little bit tighter. But
yes, yeah, I would agree, but I don't know. Actually, on the second viewing, I felt like I don't know what you would cut out other than like some of the extra multiverse stuff. But even that all sort of has a role to play for the final fight, where she chooses to fight Wayman style, and then she has to like be friendly with everybody and kill him with kindness in a way.
Well, actually, before that though, she does the opposite. There's like a montage.
Well, yes. Yeah.
There's a montage where she just decides, this is when she's going full nihilist, when Joy's having too much of an effect on her, where she just decides not to give a shit in every universe, and she's like mean to everyone in every single one. That's when she turns in the raccoon. It's when she
she stabs Wayman.
Aye, not in the main universe though, obviously.
No.
Yeah.
No, in one of the universes.
Yeah. But
it's not too far away from where she is.
But she what did she say to Jamie Lee Curtis? Because Jamie Lee Curtis shows up at the party to like repossess the house and the laundrette, and she, what did she say to her? She says something. She basically says F this and just sort of tells her something. I can't remember what she says. But so we get this montage of all this happening, and then when she embraces like the optimism of her husband, she puts a googly eye on her head, which is something she hated at the start of the movie, and she puts googly eyes on everything, and she's trying to be nice to everyone, and that's why it's so heartfelt when she's trying to help the cook with the raccoon to get his raccoon back, because it's like she's trying to like make up for it.
That actor is also really great. He really sells that he's attached to this raccoon, and the raccoon puppet also was a great performance.
Oh yes, it was wonderful stuff. It obviously looked very, very fake, but it was very fake in a charming way that was intentional. They weren't going for a realistic raccoon.
Yeah.
They should have called Marvel, said, "Hey, see that CG model you've got for Rocket? Can we borrow it?"
He sounded very Rocket in a way, also, because when she rips when she catches them in the act, basically, of cooking together. The raccoon's like, what we gotta do. She can't leave this room. It is a very Rocket moment of let's just kill her.
Yeah, there's a lot of funny little witty lines like that. But
definitely not the Disney version of whatever Raccoonie is.
No. I'll be honest, I think I would enjoy. I mean, I liked Ratatouille. It's a Brad Bird movie. Of course, I would like it, but
Ratatouille's great.
But the version where the rat's willing to kill any witnesses, I'd kind of want to see that version of the movie. It all boils up to this emotional climax, and then the final part, which is all at once, is this idea that they've both just learned to live with all this pressure. It's not that it's went away. Like she, and still, in some level, she's still living with all these possible lives that she could have lived, and that's kind of going back to what I'm saying, where it's not. You could take it as not literal that there is all these other universes. That it's just that. No, all these like ideas and thoughts that could have been are still in her head, and she's still living with all of them. But she kisses her husband passionately. She's happy here. She's still trying to do a little. There's like a couple of when they go to Jamie Lee Curtis again at the end, she's like, "Oh, you've actually done a neat thing here, and you've solved a lot of the problems, but there's still some things to clear up. You're not quite out the woods yet. Like there's still like a little bit, and that's where the movie ends. In fact,
but you're not going to go to jail or be sent back to China or something.
Yeah, even the idea actually that Jamie Lee Curtis gives them a week extension when she finds out that they might be getting divorced because she's been through a divorce herself is kind of this act of kindness, and that's also in part what inspires her. It's like, she did something that she didn't have to, out of sympathy, out of like understanding and empathy of what she's going through. So there was like these other like people that like in every universe that were worth, actress Evelyn runs after Waymond and tries to win him over and so on and so on. So you've got all these things playing out simultaneously. So it's hard not to get caught up in the rush of like just the happiness and like the optimism of the ending. And it's not that everything's perfect or ever will be. It's just that like you have to try and you'll get enough.
Well, sure. I mean, even the last moment with her daughter, the last big moment with her daughter, where like it seems like she's gonna let her go and let her do her own thing and just stay out of her way because that's what she wants, and she's saying okay. But then at the end she's like, no, you are getting fat. And yeah, I have other universes where I'm better, but I choose this one. And I think you also will choose this one because, you know, for all the universes that you've had, you were looking for me. You were looking for me, a version of me that would understand you. And I do. Like, I understand the weight of everything that you're carrying. I see the world the way you see it finally. And she even understands, you know, the love, because we get the scene with her with Evelyn and Jamie Lee Curtis where she tells her, like, she does deserve love. Like, she doesn't, you know, have to be this cold bitch and who, you know, hates people and is just going to focus on being the power that she has with her job. You know, it's yeah. So, like, it's not a perfect universe, but like it's the best one they've got so far, really, where they all can be together and work on things.
Yeah, I mean, I like the ending with the stuff with the daughter, just kind of, because it's not. I would even say it's the best. You know, I would say, you know, it is kind of what it is, and that's kind of the point. Is that it's not this perfect of any one particular thing. This is the life they have.
It is still the one that has the most potential, the most opportunities.
Yeah,
because she's a blank slate in a way.
Like I wasn't necessarily reading the whole, as much as I compared it to suicide earlier on, I wouldn't necessarily say the going into the bagel into nothingness is suicide. I think it's more just about like leaving everyone for good and like being out of their lives. But there is kind of that great image where she's trying to get to the bagel and Evelyn's holding her back, but then you see Waymond holding like her as well, and then eventually the grandfather's
it's her father first, and then Waymond's holding on to it.
Sorry, yeah, but that's the heartwarming bit, is you see the grandfather holding on, like he's making sure like both
with
of
his exoskeleton suit.
Yeah, but he's holding on to his daughter, who's holding on to his granddaughter. So it's this idea that you know, he made a poor choice once by saying, you know, I'm disowning you for leaving with this stupid boy, kind of thing, and this is him like, you know, desperately holding on to his family. To try and keep them. So, you know, there's a lot of heartwarming stuff there about just like, you know, holding on to your loved ones, you know, literally in this case, but even just in a broad sense. And
the glue that is Waymond.
Yes, Waymond is
the foundation.
He is the heart and the glue of all of this, and the optimism that they all need.
There doesn't seem to be a whole lot of Waymond and Joy relationship going on in the film. Like, it is very much focused on just the mother-daughter stuff. But like, that's her dad also, right? Like, in any universe, she seems to just not really care about him all that much.
Yeah, I think
he doesn't really talk about her that much either.
I think maybe you could just read that as it's her film, it's Evelyn's film, so it's about her relationship with her, and her relationship with her husband. So the husband-daughter relationship doesn't really come up, I guess, in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah, but yeah, I honestly, this was a very inventive film in a world where I am, you know, very fatigued with a lot of the big franchise stuff that gets pumped out. You know, this is a very refreshing. Just someone had a good idea. They had a message they wanted to say with it. It's solidly directed. It doesn't feel like it's just going through the motions. It's not following a template. It's a unique movie that isn't perfect, much like the universe that they're stuck with, right? It's not perfect, but it's got full of layers, it's full of weight, it's got full of things that it's actually trying to say. It's got fun action scenes, it's got a lot of good little comedy moments, it's got a lot of heart, it's got good performances. You know, like, this is exactly the sort of thing I want to see more of in movies, especially with movies that are dealing with, like, you know, it's because in a lot of ways at times it is like a light-hearted action movie on top of being, you know, the big sci-fi ideas, and it sort of intermingles that with everything seamlessly, which is impressive.
I loved the film. I thought it was super fun and definitely heartfelt, and just some really extraordinary performances, and especially from Waymond. I'm sorry, I don't have his name in front of me, but that was I suspect this will be kind of an awards darling also, just because it was just such a great film and great experience. So I'm actually going to go pretty high on this. I'm going to give it a 9. I really loved it.
I'm actually not going to go quite as high, just because I do think the pacing in the second half, at least on this first viewing, did. Like, I became aware of it, you know, like I sort of, it took me out of the movie a little bit, and I became aware that, oh, this is going a bit long now. But then it sort of won me back over with the ending, because I thought all the final points made was very good. But good performances, good direction. It's witty, it's funny, it's thrilling at points. It always has a heart. And the science fiction elements are fun, but they are fairly light in the sense that even though you're doing big multiverse stuff, which is not a light concept, it's very high concept. It's not like a cerebral sci-fi movie that really cares about the nitty-gritty of it. It's kind of there to just facilitate the story they want to tell. And that's okay, because that's the tone of the movie. It never feels like it's a hindrance on what it's doing. But just for objectivity's sake, I'm just acknowledging that, yeah, like the actual like sci-fi mechanics are a little bit like, yeah, you know, it's not like solid rock, you know, no pun intended, because there's rocks in this, but you know, it works for the basis that it needs to give us this like heartfelt story about humanity and, you know, one woman sort of like, you know, effectively it's science fiction action. It's a Wonderful Life. It's like, this is what you have.
Yep.
Celebrate it, you know. And in so many ways, with extra layers, of course. But, you know, if you want to boil it down, you could argue that it's kind of like a modern take on that idea. So,
and Short Round is Clarence.
Kind of, yes. Yes. He'll always be Data to me. I didn't see the Indiana Jones films till I was like 17, so I was watching Goonies since I was like 5, so.
I watched Temple of Doom just a few weeks ago, actually.
You were
not in preparation for this. It was just on TV.
Yes. You were much older when you watched that a few weeks ago than I was in either of those examples.
It's just in my mind.
Yeah. So no, like, it's really good. So I am going to give it a straight 8 on this first viewing. It could improve with repeated viewings, but I do really appreciate, right from the get-go, like right from the first few minutes, it felt like such a confident, steady direction where it already knew what it was. It already had this pacing and feeling to the scenes and like how it was presenting its characters, where this has a strong visual and directorial style that is drawing me in completely already. It doesn't just feel like a TV show. It doesn't just feel like we're doing, you know, the basics, and that is invigorating, honestly, to me. So there you go.
Yeah, especially after Crimes of the Future. What a predictable mess.
Well, no,
kidding.
that was also a unique film that I really enjoyed. So, but there you go. That is Everything Everywhere All at Once. So coming up next time, we do have to squeeze in the Patreon vote winner, the last one we had, because the current vote's about to end, actually, probably right after this goes out. But the last winner was Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, so that is what we should be doing next. Now, if we do end up running a little bit late, because we've had to push a couple of recordings back recently, and time's a little bit tight, we may have to push it a little bit and like skip it and go back to it, because we have to get the Predator done before Prey comes out, and we're actually getting quite close to that. So depending on how the next week goes scheduling wise, if we skip that and go straight to the Predator, don't worry, we'll come back to Honey, I Shrunk the Kids after Prey and Nope, because those will be getting done pretty much back to back. So that's what's coming up over the next few episodes. So
many good sci-fi movies this year. We're getting spoiled.
Yeah, but there you go. So that's what's coming up. Tara,
yes,
how can they support us?
Yeah, if you guys enjoy our reviews, please check out our Patreon page. It's patreon.com/MalfuzzTV. And if you donate as little as $3 per month, you will get access to bonus content, including episodes that we do for our more campy films, or B-rated, B-movie, not B-rated, but B-movie science fiction films, like the Full Moon Pictures Transfer Saga, which was really fun. We're working through the Tremors sequels right now, almost done. I think that'll be the next one we do. It's the last and final Burt Gummer adventure. Have films like The Guyver on there, and Free Jack, and all sorts of good things. And if you donate $5 per month, you'll get access early, right? Am I right about that? All right, cool.
And the
And
new
you get to
thing.
vote. And
Well, no, voting's not in the $5 tier.
okay, that's in the $3 tier. Things are all different now. Okay.
You were doing so well, and then it just all shit the bed in the last 5 seconds.
Well, why don't you take over from now on?
No, but no, forget the voting's in the $10 tier, but like promote the new thing. There's a new thing.
Yeah, so we're gonna be chasing the success of the Screams After Midnight bonus content, and we're gonna do our own little movie meltdown where we talk about all the weird movies that I watch. A lot of made-for-TV 70s stuff that should be lost to the world, but I have found it and I watch it all. So head on over and check out, just hang out with us. And that's at the $5 tier.
I mean, yes. I feel like that didn't do a good job of explaining what it was at all.
I don't know. We haven't done it yet. I don't really know what it is.
Okay, the Ace Meltdown is a new show at the $5 tier once per month where we just show up and we talk about all the other movies we've been watching, right? Mm-hmm. So they won't be as long, obviously, we're not reviewing them all, but we will talk about the just the random films we've been watching, not necessarily sci-fi, just anything basically. I won't bring up any horror movies because I do that on streams, but otherwise, just whatever I've been watching. Tara made it sound really specific to a certain type of movie there, but I think that's just because she expects that's what she's talking about this coming episode. But I don't want people to get the wrong idea and think it's just going to be made for TV movies from the 70s, because I feel like no one's going to give a shit about the show if they think that's all it is.
Look, I'm just going to tell you guys what I've been watching. That's what I've been watching.
Oh dear. You can also hit the super thanks button below the YouTube video, of course. Got the Twitter at Screams Midnight, share us out there. We have a subreddit, there's a Discord, check the Discord link in the description below. All these things. There's a Twitch, twitch.tv/MailFuzz TV. Or is it just MailFuzz? I actually can't remember. But one of those two. It's straightforward enough. Go check out all the stuff. But that is us, so thank you very much for joining us. We always appreciate it. Keep watching science fiction and computer at salsa.